You ever see a $100,000 SUV hanging nose first off a front gate like a trophy marlin? I have, and it was Veronica's too. The thunk that thing made against my new steel frame. Let me tell you, it was the single most satisfying sound I've heard in 20 years living under the thumb of the Highland Creek HOA. Sirens, flashing lights, the HOA president shrieking. Meanwhile, the tow truck guy just standing there, shaking his head, refusing to move it until the police had their photos. I could have burst out laughing, but honestly, I was just relieved because in that moment, I knew my crazy new gate actually worked, and that kind of chaos, well, let's just say it was entirely by design. But it wasn't just about a gate, or an SUV, or a petty feud. Chaos like that, it's always got a backstory, usually one involving way too much coffee and an idiot neighbor. For me, it started 2 months earlier on a Saturday morning that should have been quiet. Birds, fresh coffee, the works. Then, out of nowhere, crunch. You know that sound, right? Metal on wood, wood on gravel, and a kind of screech that carries both guilt and entitlement all at once. I come out, and there's Veronica, halfway through my handmade cedar gate, screaming at me that it wasn't properly marked as private property. That's how these wars start, by the way. Not with broken bones, but with broken logic. I kept my cool. Somehow, told her she'd have to pay for the damage. She laughed, this piercing little cackle, and said, "Good luck proving it." Then she drove off, dragging half my fence behind her like she was leading the world's saddest parade. Scuffed up my brand new asphalt, too. Highland Creek HOA. Naturally, they ducked out, issued some limp statement about a dispute between neighbors. Translation: you're on your own, pal. That night, I stood in my driveway, staring at that busted gate, and something snapped. I was tired of being polite, tired of playing by rules that only ever seemed to protect people like Veronica. I wanted to make a statement. If she wanted a gate, she'd never forget I was going to give her one. Time to weaponize her own entitlement. So, I called my cousin Ethan. Guy's an engineer, used to build hydraulic barriers for wildlife parks. He owed me a favor. We spent a couple evenings sketching up plans. Imagine something that could make the Army Corps of Engineers jealous. Steel frame, hidden hydraulic pivot, cedar panels on the outside, so it still looked rustic. The trick was if you parked a big, heavy SUV just so in the wrong spot, the whole thing would tip down like a drawbridge trap, slow and steady. Ethan called it a self-correcting parking deterrent. I called it poetic justice, forged in fire, sweat, and probably way too many takeout pizzas. While we built, I kept up the good neighbor act. Waved at Veronica, small talk, all smiles. She'd walk by, glance at the welders, roll her eyes, mutter about me, overcompensating for a gate. If only she knew. Right on cue, the HOA sent me a threatening letter, something about unapproved aesthetic modifications. I shot back a federal safety compliance certificate Ethan drafted, company seal, and all. The best part? It listed my new gate as an agricultural security barrier, which meant HOA rules didn't touch it. They went silent real quick. Veronica, though, she doubled down. Started parking her SUV right up against my property line, like she was daring me to say something. Even left me a note once. Some people don't belong in communities. I framed it. Motivation looks good in writing, you know? When the gate was finally done, it was art. Tall steel posts, hidden motion sensors, camera feeds synced right to my phone. The magic was in hydraulics. Programmed to spot when a heavy vehicle sat on the outer pad for more than 5 seconds. That triggered the tilt. Just 6 degrees, nothing dangerous, but enough to let gravity take its sweet time. Anything sitting there would, gently roll nose first into a very awkward situation. To everyone else, it would look like the driver just forgot to set the parking brake. I couldn't wait to see it in action. Didn't take long. One night, I roll up. There's Veronica, hosting her weekly HOA plotting circle. 6 SUVs along the street, hers blocking my gate again. I hit the horn once, twice, no response. Just her laughing from her porch. Maybe he can climb over it. So, I open the gate remotely. Platform tilts, SUV slowly, beautifully, slides forward. The rear wheels lift, the front bumper kisses the gravel. Whole neighborhood stops breathing. Veronica comes running, screaming sabotage. But Officer Hayes, local deputy chief, lives 2 houses down. He's already there, arms crossed. Says, "Looks like gravity to me, ma'am. Might want to put it in park next time." I just nodded, try not to grin. The HOA board shows up. I show them my federal paperwork and a compliance video. Officer Hayes shrugs, it's legal. That night, the story goes viral in the neighborhood chat. Half the block calls it karma. The rest call it genius. Someone posts a slow mo of the SUV hanging there. More likes than any HOA event all year. Veronica loses her mind, demands the video come down. It doesn't. She files a complaint with the county. The inspector comes out, ends up asking for a closer look, says the mechanism's ingenious. By week's end, I've got ranchers calling, asking if I can install one for them. Word gets around fast. Of course, Veronica's not done. I catch her on my security cam, pacing with her phone, plotting. 2 nights later, under cover of darkness, she's out there with her son Kyle and a wrench, whispering about loosening bolts so the gate falls next time. Thing is, I built for this. The moment her flashlight hits the main sensor, the lights pop on, bright as a prison break. Her son screams, drops the wrench, Veronica freezes. And then my voice, deadpan over the speaker. Warning. Trespassing detected. Law enforcement has been notified. She yelps, loud enough to wake half the block. Officer Hayes rolls up 5 minutes later, give her a lecture, warns her about actual charges next time. She gets escorted home, humiliated. Me? I eat popcorn and save the video. By morning, she's blasting out complaints, calls my gate a military hazard. Neighbors laugh. A local YouTuber does a segment on Gravity Gate meets Karma, racks up 250,000 views in 2 days. Veronica is livid. HOA tries to flex, but the engineering diagrams shut them down. She threatens court, brings in another city inspector, but he just grins and signs off. Built better than half our municipal barriers. Her lawyer leaves me a voicemail about defamatory content. Even then, she's still hunting for someone to blame. Then, new level, Veronica starts building a community parking lot across from my place. Brings in fencing, concrete blocks, big signs. Her idea of a power move, turning her lawn into a mini tailgate zone for her HOA guests. I record everything. Ethan stops by, jokes about making the gate coin-operated. Let people pay to watch cars roll. That's when it hits me. If she wants a circus, I'll give her one. We set a hidden air pad under the edge of my driveway. Next time someone parks there, it puffs an air pulse, lifts one wheel, enough to freak out any driver. The very first test, a pickup at her HOA party. I hit the switch, rear end tips. Guy leaps out yelling, "My truck's moving." Veronica shouts about sinkholes. The crowd scatters, and Officer Hayes orders her to close the lot pending inspection. She looks like she swallowed a lemon whole. She spams the HOA with mass emails, experimental machinery, and danger to the community. When the board finally calls an emergency meeting, I walk in calm, play the 2 a.m. footage of her trying to vandalize my gate and break down exactly how every mechanism works. If you're worried about cars moving unexpectedly, I say, maybe don't park where you shouldn't. The room erupts in laughter. Veronica storms out, red as a fire hydrant. After that, things get quieter. For a while. But with Veronica, you learn calm is just the eye of the storm. A glossy flyer shows up, community fair, right in front of my driveway. On the day, there's tents, food trucks, a bounce house dangerously close to my sensor pad, and some genius puts an orange cone in front of my gate labeled Temporary Pedestrian Zone. I take a picture, walk off whistling. Not an hour later, a delivery van parks against my gate. Sensor triggers, driver yells, Veronica shrieks about my gate, attacking the van. Officer Hayes again. "Veronica, one more false report, and I'm billing you personally." She tries to demonstrate, yanking on my gate, but it just swings open, perfectly smooth. "See, it's possessed," she screams. "Nope," I say, "just automated." Crowd loses it. That was the day she officially lost the neighborhood. She files yet another official complaint, this time about me operating heavy machinery without a license. County inspector comes back, gives me a thumbs up, says I'm more certified than most construction sites. But then, during a midnight rainstorm, I get an alert. Live cam feed, Veronica in the rain, sledgehammer in hand. She's screaming, swinging for the fences, literally. Sparks fly, sensors light up, she slips, falls into the ditch. The camera catches every second. Sheriff calls in the morning. She's mostly fine, just bruised pride, sprained wrist, and finally, she agrees to drop her lawsuit and see a counselor. The HOA quietly thanks the sheriff. Everyone knows who they mean. A week later, as I'm locking up for the night, she pulls up. No phone, no witnesses, just her, hair a mess, voice all worn out. "You win," she says. "I'm leaving. Selling, moving upstate to my sister's. I can't live here anymore." I nod. "Good luck," I say. She drives off, and for a moment, the quiet feels almost peaceful. Of course, that would be too easy. Next morning, I find a bucket's worth of nails scattered across my driveway. Caught her on camera in her bathrobe, doing her best while coyote impression. I sweep them up, drop them on her porch with a sticky note. "You dropped these." She files bogus inspection reports, send me anonymous fertilizer deliveries. Sheriff just sighs, says, "She's making it easy. She always leaves fingerprints." That's when I decide it's time to finish this. No revenge, just the truth. Ethan helps me stitch together all the footage, every report, every little moment into a documentary, When Boundaries Break, a neighborhood story. It's not a hit piece, just a timeline. It goes viral, 1 million views in a week. My gate, of all things, becomes a symbol for standing your ground. And after all that, the weirdest thing happens: silence. Veronica's gone. House sold to a nice couple who actually like peace and quiet. I think it's over. Until one night, the camera pings. It's Kyle, Veronica's son, older, eyes haunted. He leaves a small wooden box, inside a brass key and a note. "She's gone. I thought you should know." And for the first time, I feel a little sorry. Not for me, but for them. This was never about gates or fences. It was about pride and learning when enough is enough. Of course, because nothing's ever that simple, a few weeks later, someone leaves a bright pink gnome on the driveway, holding a sign, "Still watching." The sheriff promises to check it out, but honestly, I just stand there and laugh. Maybe it's a warning, maybe a joke, maybe a promise of round 2. But here's the thing, I'm not worried. Because the gate did its job, and so did I. So here's my question. Where's the line between defending yourself and going too far? Did Veronica deserve what happened, or was my poetic justice over the top? Let me know what you think. Ever had to build a boundary just to keep your peace? Drop your comments below. I want to hear your stories.